Okay, this is going to be part 13 of the Fool's journey, because in this episode the Fool meets the death card. But a little bit of recap. I said earlier with section 10 that the Fool, when he comes to the Wheel of Fortune, this is a bit like life on Earth, because there are ups and downs and you can go one way, you can go the other. And then I changed the order back to the original one, and I've got 11 as strength, but by all means use justice if you want, for number 11. And then the Fool meets the Hanged Man, and somehow at this point the motion is down, right? And if you may have seen this diagram before, because we've got the horizon. That's sunrise here, and that's sunset, and up here is noon, right? And down here is midnight. And so somehow it's a bit like with the Hanged Man going down. I want to sort of put him in this position after sunset and going down. So this is the death card, and it seems to me that we're going from a position of light, let's say with the strength card here, and daylight, and now we're looking at darkness and increasing darkness, and we've got this setting sun possibly between the two towers in the distance. So it's as if it's after sunset and we're approaching midnight. And so the Fool has to now learn to live without the sun, or has to learn to live without sunlight and without light. And so maybe the challenge is, can you use your other senses and develop them, so that instead of being able to see what's going on, you have to use hearing, smell, taste, and can't remember the fifth sense, but that other one, and to use those abilities and maybe develop them, or understand what's going on using your sense of smell rather than being able to see what's going on. And that may sound odd, but as it happens, last night I saw a documentary, or part of a documentary, about this young fellow who uses a clicker. And it's a bit of he's completely blind, but he uses a little clicker, and because the sound wave echoes back off objects, he's able to read the sound, and he sees what's there, so he can identify cars and seats and chairs and objects on tables and so on. So he's got a highly developed, and he's very skillful with sound. So it can be done with the death card. You don't need light, you don't need sunlight and sunshine to see what's going on. You can use your other senses to develop a complete and precise understanding of what's going on around you. So the other thing is, sunlight makes things so easy, because it's just easy and it's comfortable in the sunlight and in the light. But here, if we take the idea of going down and getting closer to midnight, here there's darkness and there's fear. If you can't see what's going on, it's easy to become afraid. It's because with the death card you're dealing with fear as well as the unknown, because we don't know what happens when we die, where we go, if we go anywhere. So maybe the Fool's lesson here is, you can't know certain things unless you go through them. So here, the Fool has to learn to face his fear. And what you find is, if you're willing to face your fear, it's never as bad as you thought it was going to be. Maybe there's a letter, and it's telling you whether you've been accepted for a course or something. And I'm sure we've all been in a position where there's something we really don't want to do because we don't want to know the answer. We're afraid of it. So you want to go out with somebody, but you have to call her up, or you have to call him up and ask, do you want to go out at the weekend? And until they say yes or no, you don't know, and there's fear involved with that. So with the death card, face your fear. Because it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. You're always going to be glad when you've done it. And it's your imagination that makes it worse than it actually is. So this can be information that's given to the Fool when he meets the death card. And so if fear is holding you back, you ought to face it. Or there's value in confronting your fear. And an example though, because I don't want to go bungee jumping. The thought of standing on a bridge and jumping off, I'm sort of afraid of that. And I don't like roller coasters. I was on a tiny little one years ago and I didn't like it. I know these big, massive roller coasters. So put me in front of a roller coaster and I'm afraid. So I don't think I have to go on a roller coaster, because being afraid of roller coasters and being afraid of bungee jumping is not holding me back. You know, I can live perfectly good life and perfectly enjoyable life without jumping off a bridge. So I think face your fear, yes, if it's holding you back. So if you're in sales and you're afraid to call customers to find out what happened, that's a fear that you ought to face. If you're trying to develop a blog and you want to know visitors, but you're afraid to check the numbers in case new people didn't visit your blog in this last week, that's a fear that you ought to face because it's holding you back. So with the death card, face your fears if they're holding you back. The other thing is, this is card number 13, and there's a special name for people being afraid of the number 13, and there's all sorts of negative connections with it. And this may be because 12, which is the Hanged Man, the 12 months in the year and 12 signs in the zodiac. So 12 represents a complete cycle. It's the beginning and ending of something. So 13, being one after 12, represents a new beginning. And it can be that we're afraid to make a new start. And maybe it's our imagination conjures up all sorts of problems that we're going to have to face. Problems that belong to the last cycle, that we don't have to have in the next one. But our imagination thinks we do have to have and repeat in the future what we didn't like in the past. But that's not true. Think of 13 as just a new start. It's a new start, but it's just a new start. It doesn't mean it's etched in stone. And also it's step one, or it's one step. And the thing is, because we know the tarot and we know the major trumps, it's only step one, and after 13 is 14, the Temperance card. So after we've made a new beginning here, we're going to have a chance to review what happened and what we want to do in the future, because Temperance comes next. So it's only one step, or it's step one of a new cycle. Immediately or quite soon after that, we're going to be able to review and make adjustments. The other thing is, you know, Friday the 13th, the movie, and Friday the 13th of any month, if it happens to be if the 13th happens to fall on a Friday, it's supposed to be unlucky. And so with the death card, maybe the fool is asked, tell me what luck is. And he has to figure out what is luck, actually. And maybe he comes to the conclusion that, as many people say, you make your own luck, depending on your attitude. If you're confident and you know that you're going to be able to handle what life gives you, then you make your own luck. But it's if you go into a situation expecting to fail, expecting to have problems, then you're going to have problems and you're going to fail. So with luck and the 13th and unluckiness, you make your own luck depending on your attitude or according to your attitude. But it has to be an honest attitude as well. So there's not much point in pretending that everything is fantastic when it's not. But if you can have an honest assessment, look at the situation, figure out what's good, what's bad, what's weak, what's strong, and take action to make weakness stronger or to remove the weakness, then you're going to discover that you become luckier, that your attitude of expecting possibilities and expecting that you're going to be successful is going to change you. And it's going to change the kind of situations that you attract into your life. That's something about the death card and about what happens when the fool meets death.